Welcome back to the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. It's your Richie Allen Show.
Welcome back. Is right. You can tweet the program. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Tweet me now. You can also Skype chat with Richie. Do have a conversation with me. I'm a nice guy. Don't mind having a chat with you. And don't be worried if you do believe that there are dangers associated with smoking cannabis or marijuana. Please feel free to join in. Like I said, I'm not apathetic, far from it, but I'm very much even-keeled on an even keel when it comes to this issue. So it's Chat with Richie. That's the Skype line, and the telephone number is 0161 818 2018. I'm going to do the headlines. And after the headlines, just after the headlines, I'll take your calls. Calls are coming in already. All right, so we'll do the calls in a couple of minutes' time. Let's talk about medicinal cannabis and whether you've used it or not. Let's talk about recreational cannabis as well. Let's have the headlines now, though.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. The Trump administration is expected to announce its withdrawal from the United Nations Human Rights Council Tuesday evening. Meanwhile, President Trump is meeting with Republican lawmakers on immigration as he faces criticism for separating immigrant children from their parents. And the U.S. and South Korea have suspended planning for the next joint military drills.
Richie Allen.
Right, it's the top of the hour. The phone line and the Skype line to the programme is open right now. 0161 818 2018. If you're calling from outside the country, +44 161 818 2018. But you don't have to do that. You can Skype me for free. The Skype line to the programme, or the Skype handle for the programme, is Chat with Richie. That's all one word. And while I'm talking to you, I might as well put out the meme. That wouldn't be a bad idea. So I'm going to tweet the meme now with all the details on there. And I've just done that this minute. The meme has been tweeted. There you are. I can't do it on Facebook because I'm not on Facebook anymore. But I've tweeted the meme. James has tweeted me. James, good evening. I've been a regular cannabis user for most of my adult life. Richie, 1 or 2 joints per week. The pros: relaxation, heightened appreciation of music. Everything is funny / interesting. The cons: dry mouth, anxiety sometimes, and I never get anything done. All subjective, says James. I like that, James. I like that. Indeed. Let's go to the phones then. Caller, welcome to the programme. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm Spud from Gravesend. How you doing?
How you doing, Spud from Gravesend? Nice to be chatting with you, mate. The floor is yours. Cannabis, recreational, medicinal. What have you got to say?
I've got to say this, that anyone who says recreational is an addict. There's no doubt about it. You can smoke it pleasantly. If you smoke it once or twice a week, you'll get a nice buzz out of it. But any more than that, it will slowly creep in until you're smoking it every single day. And then it's called recreational. It's not. You're blooming addicted. I gave up when I was 25 because I had a bit of a psychosis thing happen. And I'd done the maths. I'd smoked from 18 to 25, £78,000 worth of weed. And that's only having an eighth a day.
Wow. Christ, boy, that's a lot of money.
So any kid... Huh?
That's a lot of money, 78 grand.
But that's an eighth a day. That's £20 a day, every day, from 18 to 25. Everyone's going to be doing it. If everyone gives up, they'll be suddenly so rich. Everyone stoned goes, oh, I wish I had money. Stop smoking. Massive reward to get all your money back. Imagine that much money. £20 a day. I need a joint. I'll go and get a joint.
What about places like Holland, where people can smoke in certain designated areas and cafes and stuff, and people smoke all the time, and they say that there isn't a problem with addiction. They don't have as many health problems. They are able to stop when they want, and that there's actually evidence that they don't move on to harder narcotics. But just to put the other side of it to you, what do you say to that?
Well, as for the stuff they're smoking out there, it's a lot weaker. I mean, their THC levels are lower because it is restricted and it's decriminalised. It has to be at a certain level. But going back to going into where you start, it does lead on to other things. I mean, when you get bored of weed, what are you going to do next? There's loads of stuff out there, you know. If you're already socialising with people who are getting stoned, you're not socialising with like nice people. You're also suddenly able to get hold of everything else. It's just there. It's all on the same thing, really. You know?
So you think
very easy? So it does lead on to.
And you think the THC levels in the stuff that's sold here is higher? I've just had a tweet from Les.
Yeah.
I've just had a tweet from Les, who's listening to you with great interest, and Les asks me, did Spud mix it with tobacco? Because if he did, it might have been the tobacco he was addicted to. What?
I've done both. I found it the psychosis risk of smoking it pure. It was what started me going nuts a little bit. So as you're diluting it a little bit with tobacco, it's the sensation. It's the cannabinoid system in your brain being used and addicted. It's creating dopamine. So it's like a little reward all the time. You know, you get I need a joint. You know, if you and it's so it is that, yeah. You know, the THC levels. It's more. I couldn't see how the tobacco is going to be as much of an addiction as the cannabis itself. I mean, I didn't smoke cigarettes for ages. All I'd done was smoke joints. I can go for ages without a cigarette, but I have to have a joint eventually.
It's interesting you say that, because so-called experts have been saying for generations that there isn't anything more addictive than cigarettes than tobacco. But look, fair enough. When you say psychosis, Spud, I think skunk. Because now, first of all, I put my hands up when I say I know very little about any of this. But I hear about skunk all the time. In fact, I heard a BBC radio presenter today saying that he smoked marijuana in college occasionally. It was okay. But then he was given skunk one night and it absolutely blew his mind. When we say psychosis, are we talking about skunk specifically?
Yeah, well, there's a few types. You've got you got skunk, and you've got like skunk number one. They're probably talking about the seriously strong stuff. Really does get you stoned very quickly because it's very low in, it's very high in CBD high in THC and very low in CBD. And the psychosis element will come out of the stronger stuff. You've got some that smells really sweet, like grapefruits and stuff. You've got other stuff, the strong stuff, the cheeses, the skunks, you know, the amnesias, Jesus. They're the ones that will do as they say on the tin. You know, the skunk smells like skunk, dog, fox pee, you know. But yeah. So there's different strengths, and the CBD. I've worked out when I got to about 25, weed got a lot stronger all of a sudden. I'm like, what's going on? And I found that LED lights are being used to grow them, rather than getting it in from other countries. Well, now England are growing them themselves. Now the LED light stops the growth or the production of the CBD, which is the antipsychotic. So we're smoking a far stronger strain without the CBD in, the antipsychotic,
wow.
And we're just taking pure THC and screwing up the minds constantly of everyone.
Now, Spud, this is very interesting. So it's grown under LED lights, which prevents the CBD aspect of the plant developing, which is antipsychotic. So then you have the
spectrum of light missing.
Okay, so is that a deliberate thing? Is that just an unintended consequence of the way they're growing it, or what is it?
It's an unintended consequence that a lot of people are trying to figure out why is this happening. And like if you find that 2005, that's when the LED lights started coming in. People weren't growing them on those big hot lamps using all the electricity. It's a lot easier to do it with the little LEDs, but you're not getting the full spectrum of light. So it's stopping the production of CBD, which is equaling a more psychosis-inducing weed that we're smoking.
Couple of tweets, Bud. By the way, you've got a lot of people talking on Twitter, mate. So thanks for that. Thanks for calling in, by the way. Spud is on the line. Spud is live from Gravesend. Good to have him on. Great stuff. This you never know what you're going to get, and this is a really intelligent call. Mr. Sin tweets, Richie, I've been smoking weed for 20 years with no adverse effects. I've always been employed. I'm in a happy relationship. I own my own home and I've never been sick. I'm 42, says Mr. Sin. And just one more there that comes in from Millie. And Millie says, Spud is wrong, mate. We all have cannabis receptors because cannabis is our companion plant. That's from Millie. What do you think, Spud?
There's the father of cannabis, the guy who found the cannabinoid system. He found how the brain responds when given cannabis. So the cannabinoid system is something that reacts to cannabis the same way, like serotonin and dopamine react in your brain, and cannabis reacts in your brain the same way. It's like the synapses. The spark is very similar to the THC. as you smoke it, and it goes into the brain and it chills you out. But it's not a normal signal, and then your brain gets not so used to doing. I'd like to know actually, was that guy? Does he smoke it every day, or is he got somebody who smokes it once or twice a week?
Yeah, that would be helpful. That would be
addicted.
Good stuff, Spud. That would be helpful if you do use it. Give us an idea on Twitter of how often you use it. Spud, stay with me. Somebody was trying to get in there, and I was going to take them into our call, and then they stopped. I'm going to try and call them now. In fact, I'm going to wait till they call back. The caller who was trying to call there, presumably to respond to something Spud was saying, please call in. This is adult conversation, by the way, folks. It's nice. I know there are people who disagree with Spud. Come on and have a chat and explain why you do. Let's be adult about it. This is serious stuff. Spud, what do you think about the government saying... because we have to separate this whole recreational thing against medicinal thing, because I have no doubt that you think it's a great thing. Actually, before we get into that, let's see, can we add this caller to the call? Caller, welcome. Welcome to the programme. Who are we speaking to?
Hi, Richie. This is Alf, but you know me as Bass Ninja.
Ah, it's Bass Ninja. Alf, welcome to the programme. Say hello to Spud.
Hiya, Spud.
Hey there, Bass Ninja. Nice to hear you.
Go ahead.
Nice to speak to you.
Go ahead, mate. I know you disagree with Spud. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I've just been listening to what Spud's been saying. I'm sorry to hear that he's had that experience. I mean, I've been smoking for at least 20-odd years. I have breaks from it occasionally. I do know of one person who did kind of have a psychosis, and he's still having problems, right? But he's had, his family's had that history. You know, his father had mental health issues. You know, personally, now I've had, I've been in work all day, and I've come home and I've had a spliff.
Lovely.
Of skunk. Now, the only, my issue with it, with some of the things you said, is not everyone, it is subjective. If you've got mental health issues, it's like if you're drinking, you're going to go down a certain route. And yeah, you're not wrong. It has got stronger. They have upped their THC level. You know, I've got friends who are farmers. That's what I call them. I mean, I'm very careful where I go and get my crop from. You know, I'm a musician as well. I do grade. I know it sounds cliched and cheesy, but, if I have a spliff and it makes me want to play my bass, I know I've got a good weed. That's the way I look at it.
If you don't smoke it constantly, you get that lovely creative flow and buzz.
Yeah, but I smoke every day, mate.
Yeah.
Except when I go abroad, obviously.
Let Spud come back in there, Alf. Let Spud come back in. No, it's okay, mate. Stay with us. We've got plenty of time. Spud, come back in on that then.
Yeah, sorry, I lost myself again. It was saying about the sorry, I lost gone.
Yeah, well, Alf was basically saying that he does smoke every day. He's got a job. He's got a day job. He's a musician. There's he doesn't have any problems with it.
I'm not a professional musician. No.
But he's not saying it helps.
but it helps, right? Yeah.
But what I'll say is, it does. You're right with saying about the family history and stuff, or if it is inside you somewhere, you may have had some trauma in your childhood that you've overcome, and you haven't got any mental problems. But I found that, as in myself, and I couldn't quite figure out what was making me go like psychosis. And they say there is elements. Some people can smoke it, some people can't. That's another big element. But it's like when I'm talking to my doctors, they say it's doing it. And then when I had a real bad psychosis moment, and I proper lost the plot, I wasn't able to smoke it, because every time I took one puff of it, I went woof, and I really felt the power of it. I was like, gee, because I'd been off it for a while, I'd been on meds and everything, and I'd come out of the hospital, and then I smoked it. The strength of it, I was like, Jesus, and it instantly sent me into my psychosis again. And to be honest, I'm smoking. I'm back on it again now. Because I do like to smoke. It does help.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bit like Russian roulette. It is very linked to your past. It is very linked to your past. It's very linked to your family. It could be very linked, and all this just to smoke a joint. If you smoke it all day long, you're not getting the buzz out of it.
It's very interesting, lads.
After a joint,
it's very interesting. It's very interesting what both of you are saying,
and you're wasting some of the beautifulfulness of it.
I'm in work, so I can't. I mean, when I'm off work, I have days where I kind of wait and go, shit, I wish I'd done that. But You can do that if you party on a weekend anyway, can't you? Sorry, Richie.
Exactly. No. I'm fascinated by what both of you are saying, and Spud brought up and you brought up this idea that there's some genetic thing, because we all know people who can become very aggressive with spirits. You know, and this is not a joke. I've seen guys drink lager, even the crazy 6-7% lagers, and they're fine. But give them, neat vodka or give them whiskey, and they go absolutely bananas. And maybe there's I want to just put a point to both of you from Gail, who's tweeted this. By the way, Mr. Sin, who tweeted earlier, says he does smoke it every day, but he does avoid weed with high levels of THC. Now, Gail has tweeted to say that her nephew screwed up his life with skunk. He ended up being diagnosed with schizophrenia at 21, and she makes the point that maybe it could be genetic, that it might affect some and might not affect others. You see, I'm always looking for the conspiracy angle. Like Spud said, that the LED lights, which are kind of negating the CBD effects and promoting the high THC levels, Spud was saying that might be unintended, and of course Spud might be right. What the hell do I know? But I'm always wondering, well, maybe it isn't unintended. Yeah,
no, I've always thought, Richie, with it, if you think Brave New World, what's that drug called? Soma, which keeps the population mellow and they're all into football. I know people make a comparison with like alcohol, but when I've read that, I always thought, no, that's kind of like Monsanto tablet weed.
Yeah.
No longer the plant. It's that. And I think that's the way it's going in my mind. Or maybe I'm just smoking too much.
The way it's going is people, when the home growers were growing it, they were only wanting the strong effect, the stoned effect, the high THC. If it gave you the giggles and made you have a laugh, that weren't good. You wanted to get stoned and get lean. So they were bred out. The creative side of it was bred out to get more of a strong effect. And that's where the amnesia, I think, has come from. It really is an bloody mind-blowing. If you don't
that is a strong strain. But like I said, the farmers I know, they're trying to do a nice balance of both. Do you know what I mean?
Here's a question. Here's a question for both of you.
You're not getting that.
Yeah, here's a question. Here's a question for both of you guys. Let me ask both of you a question then. I've genuinely never touched it. Listen, I'm not trying to be puritanical here. I've done a lot of stupid things over the years, but one of the things I just never got to try, even though friends of mine often had a joint, I just never bothered with it. But I've heard testimony after testimony after testimony that old school cannabis, high with the CBD, not so much the high THC, was brilliant for people with arthritis and other debilitating pain. And if that's true, well then no wonder the likes of the government doesn't want to legalise it, because people will be able to maybe grow a little bit for themselves. I mean, I lived in Spain where it's legal for a person to own one plant. If it does have great anti-inflammatory and pain-killing properties, of course they don't want to legalise it. But over to both of you. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, sorry.
I was going to say about we should be able to...
Go ahead, Spud. Spud first. Go ahead, Spud.
Go ahead. Sorry, Spud.
It'd be lovely if we were able to... We were saying, and it was all linked, if we could just grow our own plant, 1 or 2 plants, then I wouldn't have to be going to get some really high, strong strain or going to bother some guy who's going to get me stressed out. And if we could just grow our own a little one plant and it'd be okay, yeah. Then I wouldn't have to get the strong strains. Then I wouldn't be having my psychosis. I'd be getting the cushies and the diesels rather than the amnesias and the skunks.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Al.
I mean, to echo what Spud was saying, then, if we could just grow one plant, that would be something else, but it's the oil. If we can get someone to do the actually true oil. I mean, I was asked by my in-laws recently, well, not recently, it was last year, can I get some? So I had to go and get, I got it legally, but it wasn't the highest concentration, highest level of CBD, in which my father-in-law wanted to take it because he had concerns with cancer. So
your father-in-law, if he just puts it in a spoon and gets a bit of skunk or solid, puts it in a spoon, melts a bit of butter, don't let it boil, put it in a yogurt and eat that. And then you get the medicinal point, because when you put it in your liver, if you eat it, it's very different to smoking it. If you eat it, it turns into a psychedelic version of the effect, which is a psychedelic, which is the anesthesia effect and the happy feeling afterwards and the release. So eating it is a far better thing for pain relief than smoking it. And certainly that kid is taking it for his mental, his epileptic fits. I mean, I know people that are doing it themselves. They get an aerosol, lighter gas, and get the leaves of a plant and make it like that. You know, you just put it, freeze it and get the liquid out. And, there are ways of doing it, yeah.
Guys, that was really interesting. Thanks to both of you. Spud, great to hear from you there in Gravesend. And Base Ninja, thanks, mate. Nice to know. I know you through Twitter, of course. Thanks for calling in, Alf. That's great stuff, mate. Great call.
All right, cheers. Nice to speak to you, Richie.
Great to speak to you too. And you, Spud. Cheers, buddy.
Keep it up.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. Really, really interesting stuff there. Kind of two different points of view on it. By the way, we had a tweet there, which I retweeted, but I can't find it. Let me have a look at it there if I can find it. And it came in from Dub Love. And Dub Love says, Richie, I worked in mental health for 20 years. Psychosis results from a predisposition to psychosis and isn't caused solely by cannabis. And that's Dub Love's opinion there. Worked in mental health for 2 decades. The psychosis results from a predisposition to psychosis and it isn't actually caused by cannabis. Phone the program if you've used it recreationally or otherwise, if you've used cannabis oil to treat ailments, if you've used high CBD content oil, or if you've used high THC content for medicinal purposes. I'd like to hear from you. We have heard from callers before. We had brilliant calls on the program before from long-time listeners to the program in Spain and elsewhere who believe that without the oil they wouldn't be here today. 20 minutes past the hour. It is Tuesday, June 19th, 2018. This is the Richie Allen Show. Your Richie Allen Show live on Fab Radio 2, triggerwarning.tv and TuneIn Radio. A lot of people tweeting and saying to me today that one of the reasons they will never legalise this is due to monumental pressure being brought to bear on governments by the pharmaceutical industry, which doesn't want this stuff to be made readily available to people because they are terrified that it has such a positive effect on so many different types of debilitating conditions, which of course are treated by pharmaceutical companies who earn billions, if not trillions of pounds a year in selling medicine to people. So there's a lot of talk about that. If you feel like that, 0161 818 2018, or you can Skype the program. The Skype handle is Chat with Richie. That's all one word, Chat with Richie. Skype me and tell me what you think. I'm really interested in what you have to say. Back more from Mr. Sin, who uses it every day, and he tweets, one of the main reasons cannabis won't be allowed for medicinal uses anytime soon is because of research and trials that have to be done before a drug can be brought to the market. This costs a lot of money. Who is going to pay for that? He says, who is going to pay for that? It's a good question. But you know, there are people who will argue that alternative medicinal practitioners and naturopaths and homeopaths have been using it successfully for generations and have done their own extensive testing on it for generations. Let's go back to the phones. Caller, welcome to the show. You're live. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, Richie. My name's Greg. I've got a funny Twitter handle called Lord Twatwaffle or something silly like that.
There you go. I know you are, Greg. Greg, welcome to the show. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. Look, the show's been a big game changer for me and many others. I actually hail from the bottom of Tasmania, so the other side of the globe, but temporarily in the UK, so I thought I'd take advantage of calling at some normal hour. On the whole cannabis debate, I think it's like the last two callers sort of showed, it's not a black and white issue. For some people, it's a beneficial drug. For other people, it can cause a few problems. And so it's not. I mean, medicinally, it absolutely should be legal. It's been proven that it just solves so many problems. My own journey with it was got into it young. Probably started smoking at about 13, 14. Probably overdid it in my younger years. Probably overdid it when I was about 20. Sorry, the dog's going a bit mental.
No worries.
Yeah, and but look, at certain times it was a real mind sort of opening experience and a lot of positives. The strains have got so much stronger that I think that potentially some of them are a bit more damaging than they used to be. It's a bit harder to get the mellow type of sort of homegrown, grown in the ground sort of stuff that we used to get when I was at school, for instance, which, you'd have to smoke a fair bit of it to even get stoned, but some of it now is like couple of puffs and it'll sit you on your bum, you know.
Right, I was going to ask you that. That was my next question, to try and explain to people like me who've never used it, what's the difference then as opposed to now? You said that, you know, you smoked a joint, you got a bit mellow. Now it's an instant. How does it make you feel? What does it do to you, Greg?
Well, there's actually a lot of different strains, and they do have very different effects. Like the best ones, I remember when I first went to Amsterdam years ago, they'd give you a menu at some of the better cafes where it'd actually tell you the effect. They'd say, right, this one's a really sort of stone feeling. It's going to stick you to the couch. This one is really mellow and it's just going to kind of relax you. And then this one's a really laughy and happy one. And they're literally that different. It's quite amazing, the different effects. And you can breed them. I know people who grow it, and they have all these different strains, different names of strains. People who listen to the show who know a bit about it will know that. I mean, there's ones called like White Widow and White Zombie, and they are literally, the plants are covered in the crystals, in the THC crystals, you know, to the point where they've just been bred that way, just genetic selection over time, like growing bigger, fatter apples or carrots or anything like that. It's just a selection process, so they get stronger and stronger and stronger, as opposed to just some of the old, you know, homegrown hippie stuff that we used to have. The other thing, one of the callers said, you know, it's our companion plant because we have cannabinoid receptors in the brain. We also have opioid receptors and all sorts of other receptors as well. So I think that's the companion plant thing might be stretching it. We have lots of receptors in the brain for lots of things. Not saying it's not a useful plant or a good thing, but yeah, there's just my view on it is just sort of changed over the years, you know.
Yeah, and you know, as you're speaking with me now, we've had more tweets to back that up. You know, people saying that they've used it and basically they've noticed that increase in strength of it. A couple of tweets that have just come in. Gail got back on to say that, speaking about her son, who first took his father's weed at 14, but by the time he was 16, 17, he was off the rails, didn't drink, but could have been drinking, but got onto that skunk. And we hear skunk all the time. And I had an encounter with a man about 8 or 9 months ago on a footpath while I was out walking my dog very early in the morning, and I was jogging and I had my headphones in, and before I even reached him I could smell this extremely strong smell of what I assumed was cannabis. And when I got close to the guy went absolutely crazy, started screaming at me, threatening me, because he had a dog as well, and he had this notion that my dog was going to attack his dog. The guy was so crazy that I didn't engage him, that I didn't run away, but I just kept jogging because I thought I can't reason with him, and if I do, he's going to throw a punch at me, at which point I might throw a punch back, and then who knows where that's going to end up. But shortly after that, this is a busy footpath, Greg, and I met somebody else, and they said that guy is skunked up to the gazoo, basically. And they said he was smoking a very, very strong strain that makes, you know, people very, very aggressive. And I thought, the strong strains are so much stronger than they used to be. I grew up in an area in Australia where a lot of people grow it. It's a bit of a hippie area, this and that. Even the look of the plants, the smell of them, you can smell them from 50 or 100 meters away now. They're covered in white crystals. We never saw anything like that when we were younger. It's literally, like I said, like breeding fat or vegetables. You're breeding in certain traits and you're breeding out certain traits. And like the previous caller said, look, some people react positively to it and love it, have no ill effects. Other people, you know, have some ill effects. The paranoia can kick in a little bit. But I think like anything, it's a balance. If you overdo it, if you drink too much, it's going to become a problem. If you smoke too much weed for a long period of time, it's going to become a problem as well. Yeah. And I think the other thing is that there's you know, the jury's out on, is it medically addictive like nicotine? Well, I don't really know, but I know I was addicted to it for a while. So it is an addictive substance without tobacco in it for some people, not necessarily for others. But a lot of people also who smoke a lot of weed say, oh, I'm not addicted, but try and get them to go with a week without it, and they won't. Right, so it is addictive. So in your case, Greg, you had, for the time that you were using it, you had to have it. You just had to have it, basically.
It was habitual. It was only probably weekends, but I couldn't go a weekend without it. It wasn't daily, but I knew within myself it was an addiction. You know, you know when you're addicted to something, if you're honest with yourself. It wasn't daily cravings or anything, but it was definitely an addiction that I had to really work hard to break. And I don't generally smoke
at all anymore. Maybe the odd puff on a joint at a party, maybe, but definitely don't get stoned anymore, if you know what I mean.
Good stuff.
Sort of grew out of it a bit for me, but that was my journey with it. It was really positive at the start. Overdid it, became negative, and then sort of just backed off. So, it's not black and white. It's like all issues. There's
that's
middle
right.
grounds, and there's a lot of myths around this as well. But I think essentially it should be decriminalised, definitely. But like everything, if you overdo it, there's going to definitely be consequences.
Absolutely, Greg. And if you are going to use it, you should accept that you've got responsibility not to drive, for example, and to do other things that are stupid. But yeah, look, I'm with you. So you're a Tasmanian. You're in the UK for a bit. What's going on in the UK? How long are you sticking around for? What's happening?
Till September, over visiting friends, spending a bit of time in Cornwall. Lucky enough to work online now, so I can work remotely. Lived in the UK for 8 years and love it. Despite all its quirkiness and its unelected House of Lords and all the rest of it, and the royal family and all that absolute insanity, But yeah, I love the place, and Tasmania gets a super cold winter, so the British summer's warmer than the Tassie winter. So here we are, and glad to be back for a little while.
Well, it's very nice to meet you, Greg, sincerely, and thanks
and Richie, congrats on the show, mate. It's a big one for me. There's more people that you'd think on that tiny island of Tasmania that listen to your show as well. You've got to reach across the world, man. It's a big thing. So
it's very nice. It's lovely to hear that, because we get some terrific guests on, and it's nice to know that they're being heard, more than just here. So, hey, Greg, enjoy the summer, my friend, and do stay in touch with us. I'd really appreciate it if you did. Thanks so much.
Will do indeed, Richie. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye for now. Lovely stuff. Greg there, who's in Cornwall at the moment. Here till September, Tasmanian by birth. Freezing cold, apparently. I didn't know that. You learn something new every day. It's pretty summertime, and we are having a summer. It's wonderful. It's actually quite wonderful. It is warm. It is muggy. It is humid. We've had a lot of sunny days thus far. But apparently in Tasmania, it freezes. It's at 29, well, it's actually 30 minutes. It's 1:30. This has flown by, this programme. Absolutely flown by. It is June 19th, 2018. It's your Richie Allen Show. What else would it be? Live across Fab Radio 2 and triggerwarning.tv. Tune in, of course, and richieallen.co.uk. Why do you keep telling us that, Richie? You've got to do the call letters. Back in the day, you got to say it. WLRFM.com. Talk Radio Europe, TR. You got to say it all the time. It's all about promotion, you see. That's why we say the Richie Allen Show all the time. Because when people are tuning in for the first time, they just happen across it. What am I listening to? You're listening to the Richie Allen Show on Fab Radio 2. Triggerwarning.tv. Right, shall I take a break? Plenty of time to call me. Very interesting stuff we've heard so far. Have you used it for medicinal purposes? How good has it been? David Mortimer has been tweeting me liberally. How you doing, David? I'm going to retweet some of those tweets from David there. Susan tweets, Richie, meditation has the same effect faux drugs have. Taking drugs too young leads you along the fool's path, and people can easily be corrupted by dark energies, so they lose themselves. It's a quick path to spirituality. If you remember the trip, but longer in the path to spiritual, or longer is the path to spiritual. I think Susan means long is the path to spirituality. Cartoon Drunk tweets, if they banned alcohol and legalised weed, they would do CD, or they could do a massive favour. Is that right? Is that what you're saying? Cartoon Drunk, retweet that if I've gotten that wrong there. As for the addiction, it's not the first time I've heard from somebody like Greg who said that, I came to depend on it. And I came to use it, whether it was at weekends, like Greg said, but I had to do it every weekend. And I was compelled to do it. I was addicted. Because there are people who say, well, this is very black and white. It's not addictive, full stop. Well, you see, a lot of people who've taken it in the past say it is addictive. I've had periods over the years, and I'm very open about this, where I've used alcohol as a bit of a crutch. I don't mean getting paced, falling around. No, but, you work a very long day, and you come to the end of the day, I'll have a beer. And you come to, it's kind of like a crutch, ice cold beer. You've been speaking for 2 hours on a radio program. You've spent hours and hours and hours preparing it. Cold beer, maybe 2. And you think to yourself, it's not the best thing in the world to do. It's not ideal, really. But you kind of come to depend on it sometimes. You get into a little bit of a rut. Yeah, I'll have a couple of pints or a couple of cans or tins, as they say in Ireland. Couple of tins, couple of tinnies. But I've always been able to stop, and say, look, enough's enough. I've been taking it a bit for granted there. Maybe I need to just give it a bit of a miss. Never had an addictive personality. Is there such a thing, dear listener, as an addictive personality? Is that a figment of the imagination? Is that an invention of Big Pharma, addictive personality? Is Mr. A, maybe if you have Mr. A, Mrs. B, Mr. C, is it possible that one of them will be more likely to be addicted to certain things than others? Genetic makeup and all of that. CD was abbreviation for cartoon drunk. Should have seen that one coming. Cheers, mate. Wanman has tweeted me. Wanman, how you doing, Wanman? I think it's the first time you've tweeted me. Fixation on skunk is like fixation on Macallan, sativa and indica. 2 types, one headstone, one body, one creative, one numbing. It's about choice and so-called individual liberties. No cannabis attributed deaths. So nobody can attribute any death rate to cannabis, right? Okay, I might accept that, but does that mean that you can say conclusively that it isn't addictive? Can you say that conclusively? I don't think you can. I'm going to take a quick break, back with some more in a minute.
Do you want to release the full potential of your soul consciousness and find out how to experience that power in all areas of your life now? Go to livingasyoursoul.com for free guidance with in-depth how-to articles, free healing meditations of creation recordings, free soul solutions, and much, much more. Livingasyoursoul.com, making the profound practical.
Introducing the H2O app, a powerful water structuring application that programs vibrational energies into water through the use of different sound frequencies. Once programmed, the use of water for drinking, cooking, bathing. Give it to your friends and colleagues or spread it around the garden. The list goes on. It's not just water that the app can be used for either. It's great for programming crystals too. The H2O app is free to download and is available on both Android and Apple platforms. For further information, go to h2oapp.online.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
The Richie Allen Show relies on your support. Go to richieallen.co.uk and set up a monthly donation today.
Yeah, it's 24 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back to the programme. Really good to be with you. Been thinking a lot about what we're going to do in the programme in the month of July, and longer listeners to the programme, or people who've been around with me long enough, will remember me saying in previous summers, I want to get into the universe. I want to get into space. I want to get into time. I want to get into the nature of reality in the summer. And I say this every year, and it doesn't always work out the way I want it to work out. But I'm determined that in the month of July, I'm going to bring some guests to the programme, some really interesting men and women who've got theories about how we came to be here, quantum physics, you could say, the origins of the universe, the nature of reality, the holographic universe, even flat earth. Jesus. Maybe not, maybe so. And that sort of thing. So stay in touch with the programme. So Greg, who was on, has got back on Twitter there to say the whole addictive personality thing to him is an excuse. Greg says it's an excuse. We all have those tendencies. We all have, even for a cup of tea, for instance. It's built into us. It's a survival mechanism. The reward loop in the brain is a proven thing. Thanks, Greg.
5,
Caller.
9, 4, 5.
What happened
2,
there?
1.
Somebody rang me, and I've just answered their call, and now they're gone. What happened there, do you think? Shall I call them back? Shall I call them back, dear listener? I'm trying to call them back, but I can't. Somebody rang me, I answered it, and then I put the old fader up and I got that sort of craziness. So we'll see, do they call back? You can call 0161 818 2018, or you can Skype me. My Skype handle is Chat with Richie. Love hearing from new people tonight, not to impugn or to be critical of callers we've had previously. Love those calls too, and we'll welcome them back again, but I like to hear from new people. We have an enormous listenership, and I want that reflected in the programme. If you've never called me before, call 0161 818 2018, or do Skype the programme. It's Chat with Richie on Skype. Penny tweets, people can get addicted to anything. It doesn't make it bad for everyone. Liz tweets, you better have a spliff than Richie. I won't do that ever, because I just don't like it. You know, I grew up in a house where there was people smoking, cigarette smoke and cigars, and I hated it. I couldn't actually find the language, the vocabulary to describe how much I despised it. And I'm going to be honest, as a very, very young boy, I had a fixation. I despised people who smoked. I thought they were sick. I thought they were, there was something wrong with them, you know, and I hated it. I hated being around it. Hence, I never tried it. Caller, welcome to the programme. I think we got you in the end. Who am I speaking with?
My name's Ian Schlicker.
Ian, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Richie, yeah?
Nice to chat with you, mate. I'm very well. So we're talking about recreational cannabis. We're talking about medicinal cannabis. Over to you, mate. What would you like to say?
Well, I've tried recreational cannabis, and it doesn't really work.
Ian, do me a favour. I can hear the programme on in the background. Do you mind turning it down for a minute? We've got plenty of time, mate. Turn it down in the background so we're not hearing it. And then you and I can have a chat then with no distraction. Turn me down. I can hear that stupid Irish accent in the background there.
It's not a stupid Irish accent. I've got a stupid Brummie speech defect.
I'm being... no, you don't. You sound great, Ian. Right, so you tried it recreationally. Tell more. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's top entertainment.
You found everything funny.
Oh yeah, I always enjoyed it. But a long-term thing, well, yes, maybe. I don't know. I've always enjoyed smoking cannabis for taking away the stresses of modern day life.
Right. So
does that make sense?
Of course it makes sense. The way I described having a cold beer after a long day.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And it kind of washes away the stress. You can kind of chill out with it. Now tell me this, Ian, how often would you have used it? Going back to what Greg was saying, would you have become kind of, not dependent on it, but would it have become, a habit for you?
Yeah, it became a habit, and yes, it was a habit, and it worked for a while, but it's not a long-term solution. I didn't feel it didn't work for me as a long-term solution.
Did you find, because some of the callers tonight have talked about the different strengths of it? What sort of strength were? Oh,
for God's sake! The new stuff. The new stuff, the real strong stuff, whatever it is I'm smoking now. Well, it sends me loopy.
So what you would have taken previously, Ian, would have given you a bit of relaxation. You would have chilled out a bit. You would have found things funny. You would have been in good form, maybe a bit sleepy, and that was fine. But now it's something different. It's something more. Not aggressive in terms of that. Yeah, go ahead. What is it like now?
Yeah, the stuff that's out now, it's it I don't know if it's comatose is the right word, but
here's the question.
You could have a couple of spliffs and a beer, and everything would be fine. But this stuff that's out there now,
this is what they say, Ian. They say that the stronger stuff now under the LED lamps gives people a bit of paranoia. It sometimes makes them aggressive.
I don't know where it comes from. I don't know about the LED lamps. I don't know about that, but you can't rule it out, can you?
Tell me this, without going into too many details, because obviously millions of people in the country are using cannabis recreationally. And I say live and let live. I'm not going to tell people what they can and can't do. What I'm fascinated about, though, is where do people get it? Now, I don't want you to give me any specific details. That's your own business. But is it a case that in communities, people just know the man or the woman who's got access to it? Is that how it works, Ian?
It's pretty much available everywhere, I think, you find.
Right.
But, you know, it's... you don't need to go far to find somebody who can supply you with it. And when I say supply, that's the wrong way of looking at it. It's because it's natural plants.
Yeah.
Obviously. And, well, it don't take much looking to find it.
You see, I'm so sheltered here because I've no experience of it. I wouldn't know, if I wanted some, I wouldn't know where to go. That might be a bit cheeky because I've gotten to know so many people through the programme. I'm sure I could make a phone call.
You don't have to ask one or two people.
Yeah, and then you'd find.
Wouldn't you? Yeah.
And is it an expensive... I don't want to use the word habit because it sounds dirty. Is it an expensive endeavour? Is it an expensive hobby?
Cheaper than shanting. When shanting is like a pompy word for drinking. It's cheaper than drinking.
Because I heard people say, 20 quid for an eighth of it. I think somebody said earlier on, it might have been Alf who said an eighth, or maybe it was Spud who said it.
I've lost track of the weights, but 20 quid's worth of that stuff is the stuff that the last time I had, it's 20 quid's worth of that would be like a couple of bottles of scotch. So it has become far cheaper.
Very interesting stuff, this. I'm getting plenty of calls coming in, mate. So, Ian, if you don't mind, I'm going to move on. Thanks for sharing that with us, mate. Is it just before...
Lovely to speak to you, Richard.
Not at all. Just before you go, so you still use it occasionally, by the sounds of it?
I think the last time I tried it, that's going to be the end of it for me, because it
was too strong.
Oh, too strong for me, yeah.
So that's an interesting one. So just before you go, you weren't able to, or could you say to the person with the stash, listen, I would prefer, the old school, mild, mellow stuff, or is that just gone now? Is that just difficult to get?
No, what I'd do is I'd go online and buy some seeds and grow some milder stuff myself.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be worried about anybody finding out. You just say, to hell with that, I'm going to grow it and that's it.
Well, yeah, obviously worried about it, but I know that the last couple of plants that we grew were, well, very, very nice and friendly, and we had a nice time with them. But,
mate, listen,
the stuff that seems to be available now is vicious.
Is vicious,
in my opinion.
And you're not the first.
In my opinion,
you're not the first person to say that. You're not the first person to tweet it either. Ian, thanks for listening to the show. First of all, I'm really happy that you do, and thanks for calling, mate. Very good call. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, good on you, Richie.
Cheers,
keep
mate.
On the faith.
Lovely to speak to you, mate. You too. Bye for now. That was Ian there. A brummie, as he said, talking about the fact that, again, very good analysis there about the strength of it now as opposed to the strength of it previously, and how now it's kind of a mind-blowing strain of cannabis there. This is the Richie Allen Show. Lots of calls coming in, and I still have time, by the way. It's 12 minutes to the top of the hour. I can probably take one or two more calls. Liz was trying to get in there, so I'm going to give Liz a quick ring there. Can I get Liz on? Let's give Liz a ring. because Liz was trying to get through. Let's get her on, have a chat with her. We've not heard from any of our lady listeners tonight. We've not had any female callers. Let's try and redress the balance, the old gender balance there. It's Chat with Richie on Skype, and it's 0161 818 2018 on the phone. 0161 818 2018 on the phone. Liz, welcome to the programme. How are you?
Thank you, Richie.
Lovely to hear from you.
Thank you. I went to Mark Bierski through you. Well, at least I heard about him from you.
Oh, fantastic. I hope it was good, Liz. I hope you enjoyed the time you spent with him.
It was wonderful. Great people. Anyway, my thing about, yes, I believe I'm a lot older than you now.
You don't sound it, Liz.
I have no problem with people using marijuana either for recreational purposes but I do believe it for medicinal purposes. I use it myself. I've grown my own. I've made my own oil.
Was it easy, Liz? Liz, was it easy to making the oil, growing a plant and making the oil? How do you do that?
Secretly.
Brilliant, great answer. Obviously secretly, right, okay. But how difficult is it logistically? Is it easy to do it?
Very. The oil, well, yes. Now, I grew it, I didn't grow it under the LCD lights, I grew it under normal bulbs in an attic. The oil, you cook it in a rice cooker, you clean the buds, it's the buds you use, but you must be careful for medicinal purposes, you really only use the indica strain. The sativa is the one that has the high THC in it, whereas the indica has more, it's mostly CBD with just a little THC, and that's the calming effect, and that's the healing effect, and it's what kills the pain.
Now, I don't want any personal details because they are none of my business, but you said you've used it yourself, and I don't want to be asking you personal questions, but you've used it for various ailments, Liz, and presumably you've found it very, very helpful.
I have MS, so I use it for that.
And how does it help your MS?
It eases, I suffer a lot of what I call my jumping leg, which would be cramps and spasm, and it calms the cramps and the spasm.
Now,
and it eases the pain.
Does it virtually eliminate the cramps and the spasms? Like, how successful is it with the with those issues?
It takes a while once you take it, but over time, there's a very good site. The guy I followed to make the oil was a guy called Rick Simpson.
Oh, Rick.
And he has a site, Phoenix Tears, and he goes through how you make it. A lovely guy, actually. He's been using it for years, and he makes oil and gives it to people. He doesn't charge for it, and he doesn't recommend that people buy advertised Rick Simpson oil. You make your own, then you know it's pure. And because there's a lot of cowboys out there.
I'm sure there is. Because of what you've described about how it's helped your MS, you're not the least bit surprised that these courageous ladies, not just in the UK, but obviously ladies like Vera Toomey in Ireland, who have children who have the very awful types of epilepsy. You're not surprised, I suppose, Liz, to learn that the oil has remarkable effects on the seizures and how it helps these children.
None whatsoever. I was delighted for those women, and they both should be given medals for fighting the way they did.
What about Ireland then? I mean, it's funny, you have the UK Home Secretary today. He said, right, we're not going to legalise recreational cannabis, but we are going to have a review of medicinal cannabis. I wonder, will they follow suit in the Republic of Ireland? If they did, of course, it'd be great news for you, Liz.
Oh, it would. I mean, well, usually Ireland follows the US, and a lot of places in the US, at most states, it's now legal. So we usually follow the US.
Do you know what, Liz? It's an outrage. For any To think that first of all, that you're a free, sovereign human being, an outrage that somebody you've never met can say to you, you're not allowed to grow a natural plant that's been around for millions of years, and you can't use some oil to alleviate your medical issues. It's just, to me, it's the most outrageous notion. Go away. I'll do what I need to do for myself. Why should you have to suffer discomfort with the cramps and the spasms? The oil is doing the job. Just leave you alone.
Yeah, anything natural, Richie. I gave vitamin B17 to my dog. He had cancer, saved his life.
Did it, Liz?
Yeah. And B17 is just an apricot kernel, and they banned them.
So you're telling me that presumably a vet gave up on your dog, and you gave him some vitamin B17, and he recovered, or she recovered.
Yeah. And my vet came back to me asking me, I gave my dog B17 and a thing called Essiac, and my vet actually came back and asked what was I giving my dog Paddy.
Wow. Tell us about Essiac, Liz. I never heard of that. What's that?
Essiac is a drug. It was formulated. It's from an old American Indian recipe, and it was a nurse in Canada who'd used it to cure cancer for people.
Wow. Funny, Liz, isn't it funny? It's a taboo subject. You're not allowed to talk about things that cure cancer, which again staggers me. It's against the law in this country for anybody to claim that cancer is curable, and that should make people, that should prick their ears up straight away. Why should it be illegal to talk about, what might be able to alleviate the tumours or whatever? Fascinating. And is the dog still around, Paddy? Is he still around today?
Sadly, he died, but then he made the decision to go, so I didn't have to put him down.
Right.
He was an old dog, so
he was old, right? Fair enough, Liz. Yeah. Well, look. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's big pharma. You're up against it. It's going on now since the last 40 years that they banned these things, and I refuse to be censored, and I'll do my own thing. I'll do it quietly, but I certainly believe in it, and it does alleviate pain, and I take my hat off to those women in Ireland and in England who fought bitterly.
Mothers are creatures. Mothers are creatures you don't want to mess with, Liz, when it comes to protecting their children. And I'm not saying that for a laugh. I think, these women are doing what women have been doing for forever, protecting their babies. And who has the right to tell them that they can't administer something that is proven to help those children? Just before we go, because I'm just about running out of time, where are you in Ireland, Liz? You don't have to tell me, actually.
Cork.
Oh, you're in. I would have said Cork, yeah, but I didn't want to say Cork in case I was wrong. Well, look, thanks for sharing that with us, Liz. It's great to hear that. Again, people who might have MS, might have cramps, might have the issues, the spasms you talked about, they might think about trying what you've talked about. I mean, there's no better advocate for it than you, because you've tried it and you've used it. Really glad that you got in touch with us, and please get in touch with us again, Liz. I mean that. Thank you.
Okay, right, Richie. Lovely talking to you.
That was an honour. But pleasure was mine. Thanks very much, Liz. That was Liz there in Cork. Wonderful call, that. Liz has been helping her own MS and the issues around it, which obviously cramps and spasms, using the oil that Liz makes herself, and she says it's an easy process, and it's hugely beneficial for her. So listen out, or listen up, I should say, if you are somebody who is dealing with MS, or somebody who is. Lovely to hear from Liz. That's it for the programme. It's time to go. What a terrific hour that was. Thanks to all the callers. Really enjoyed that. Thanks to Professor Alan Sked, whom I called in the first hour to talk about Brexit and the movement to destroy the result of the referendum in 2016. Professor Alan Sked, whose website is cleanbrexit.com. Cleanbrexit.com. I'll be back with you tomorrow, Wednesday.